It was a Tuesday night in late November, around 9:45 p.m. The kind of forgettable evening you never expect to change anything. I was in the basement, tossing damp clothes from the washer into the dryer, when I heard them. My parents were upstairs in the living room, mugs clinking, low laughter drifting down through the floorboards. Then my dad's voice cut through, clear as if he were standing beside me. "Some kids make you proud," he said, amused. "Others just take up space." I stopped mid-motion, a T-shirt in my hand, water dripping onto my shoe. I didn't need to ask who he meant. My name didn't have to be spoken for the arrow to land. For a moment, I just stood there, listening to their laughter. It wasn't cruel in the obvious way that almost would have been easier. It was light, casual, like a running joke they'd been telling for years. And in a way, they had little digs hidden as teasing. Comparisons to other people's kids. Comments about how I still hadn't figured it out. How some people just aren't driven. I'd been the punchline at my own dinner table more times than I could count. And I had always played along, smiled, chuckled, rolled my eyes like it didn't matter. Because if I didn't laugh, I was too sensitive. If I spoke up, I was starting drama. So I learned to swallow it, to minimize it, to pretend words didn't sting when they absolutely did. But that night felt different. I closed the dryer door slowly, pressed the button, and listened to the low rumble start up. No eye rolling, no forced laugh, no excuses on their behalf echoing in my head. On my way back to my room, I could still hear them talking. I didn't go in. I didn't confront them. I just walked past the living room like a ghost silent, unseen, and went upstairs. I sat on my bed, staring at the crack in the ceiling I'd seen 1,000 times. And something finally clicked into place. Why am I letting them decide who I am? Why am I shrinking so they can feel taller? Why do their offhand comments still hold this much power over me? It was around 11:30 p.m. when I made the decision. I pulled out a small duffel bag from under my bed, packed clothes, toiletries, my passport, some documents, and the emergency cash I'd quietly saved for someday. I didn't write a note. I didn't rehearse some grand speech. There was no dramatic shouting match. No slammed doors. At 12:07 a.m., I walked out. The air outside was bitter and sharp. The street was nearly empty, just a few porch lights glowing in the dark. I sat in my car for a minute, hands gripping the steering wheel, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. No plan, no clear destination, just one rule echoing in my head. I'm not going back to the version of me that accepts this. I turned the key and pulled away from the curb. As the house shrank in my rearview mirror, something strange happened. With every block, I felt lighter, like there had been an invisible weight strapped to my chest for years. And I was only now feeling it fall away. No messages sent. No calls made. I didn't post anything vague and dramatic on social media. I didn't hint or explain. I just disappeared. Cleanly. At first, it felt like quitting. Like I was running from a fight I should have had. But as the highway lights blurred past me, I realized something. I wasn't running away from them. I was walking toward myself. By sunrise, I had signed a short-term lease on a tiny studio across the city. Nothing impressive, peeling paint, a strange draft near the window. But it was quiet. And more importantly, it was mine. No one knew the address. No one had a key. The first week felt surreal. I bought my own groceries, cooked simple meals, set my alarm for times that suited me, not them. I worked. I slept. I took long showers without someone knocking impatiently. In the evenings, I walked the neighborhood just to breathe air that didn't carry the weight of their words. Silence, I discovered, can be incredibly loud. My parents didn't call that first day or the next. When they finally did, I watched the phone light up on the table and let it ring. They didn't leave a message. They'd always believed I wouldn't last without their oversight, that I needed their constant commentary, their advice, their supervision. that sooner or later, I'd come crawling back ashamed, grateful, compliant. But every day I stayed away, something inside me settled. I wasn't raging. I wasn't plotting some grand confrontation. I was just living quietly, deliberately, and in that simplicity, I discovered something I'd never known before: the authority of choosing my own peace. I didn't cut them off to punish them. I simply stopped volunteering to be treated like a joke. Days turned into weeks. Their calls increased, then slowed, then came in bursts. I didn't answer. Texts arrived with casual questions, as if nothing had happened. Where are you? Are you coming for dinner on Sunday? Your mom made your favorite. I read them. Then I put my phone down. My life took on a new rhythm. Mornings became sacred. I'd wake around 7 a.m., make coffee, sit by the window, and read books I'd wanted to read for years, but never had time for. I started journaling. Not long, emotional essays, just a few lines each day about how I actually felt, not how I was supposed to feel to keep everyone comfortable. I'd walk to a small cafe nearby, greet the barista who'd started remembering my order, and simply breathe. Work, which had always been a sore subject at home, became a refuge. No one hovered, asking if I still had that job, if it was really a career, or if I'd ever get serious about life. It was just work, and then my evenings were truly mine. No muted jokes about "you're still here" when I walked through the door. No subtle evaluations of how productive I'd been. Just quiet. Meanwhile, back at my parents' house, the impact started to show. My sister, Nina, told me about it later. One Sunday, they'd called a family discussion in the living room. My empty seat on the couch sat there like a question no one wanted to answer. "We should just call them," Nina had said, "or at least say we're worried." My dad hesitated, something he never did when I lived there. "They're just being dramatic," he said, though even Nina could tell he didn't believe his own words. My mom stared into her coffee, silent. "They'll come back," she muttered. "They always do, except this time." Idea in single quotes T. About 3 weeks in. There was a knock at my apartment door. Soft, hesitant. It was a Wednesday night. A little after 8 p.m. I checked the peephole. Nina. I opened the door just enough to see her face. She looked nervous, uncertain which version of me she'd find. "I wanted to see you," she said, shifting from foot to foot. "Why?" I asked. Not accusatory, just honest. To tell me I overreacted, that I should come home and stop being difficult? She winced. "No, I miss you." I stepped back and let her in. The apartment was simple, no decorations yet, just the essentials, but it felt peaceful. She looked around, taking it in. "This is different," she said quietly. "Yeah," I replied. "It is." She searched my face for anger, for something she could argue against. She didn't find it. All she found was calm. "If you really miss me," I said evenly, "then respect this. Respect that I needed space. That I still do." She nodded slowly. "Mom and Dad," she started. "I don't speak for them," I said gently. "And I don't want them speaking for me anymore, either. If we have a relationship, it's between you and me. Built on respect, not jokes at my expense, not little digs. I won't show up to be the target anymore." Nina went quiet. She understood. Maybe not completely, but enough. She stayed for a while. We talked not about the past, not about blame, just about her classes, my work, ordinary things. When she left, she hugged me tightly, more tightly than she had in years. Days passed, then weeks. Eventually, my parents reached out directly. "We'd like to talk." My mom wrote in a short text one afternoon. I stared at the screen, then replied, "We can talk when everyone is ready to respect boundaries. That means no jokes, no minimizing, no turning it back on me. If that's not possible yet, we can wait." No explanation, no essay, just a line in the sand. Over the following months, things shifted slowly at first. Then steadily, I started attending the occasional dinner, but on my terms. I arrived when I chose. I left when I felt it was time. And in between, I paid close attention. The sarcasm that used to fill every conversation began to thin. My parents tested the waters sometimes and almost joke. A half comment, but when they did, I didn't take the bait. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't laugh along. I let the words fall flat and continued the conversation as if they hadn't been spoken. When my sister slipped in a jab out of habit, I'd look at her calmly and say, "No," not angrily, just firmly. "We're not doing that anymore." At first, the new dynamic felt awkward. Family dinners were quieter. Without my reactions, the familiar rhythm of poke, defend, escalate, dismiss had nowhere to go. Everyone seemed slightly off balance. But slowly, the balance began to reset. My parents started asking real questions instead of veiled criticisms. "How's your job going? What projects are you working on? How do you like your new place?" The tone was different. Less judgment, more genuine curiosity. My presence in that house was no longer something they could take for granted, because now they understood. I could leave. I had left, and I was perfectly capable of building a life without their approval. I didn't earn respect by yelling, by putting them in their place, or by delivering some perfect speech. I earned it by doing something much quieter. I stopped offering myself up for disrespect. I held my line, consistently, calmly. No ultimatums, no explosions, just boundaries that didn't bend when pushed. Gradually, the house changed. Requests replaced commands. Conversation replaced commentary. Listening replaced mockery. Months later, the difference was undeniable. My parents approached me with awareness, now not walking on eggshells, but conscious. They didn't assume I'd appear at every event. They accepted no as an answer. My sister no longer launched sharp jokes at my expense. She'd start, catch herself, and choose different words. And me? I didn't feel like I was constantly bracing for impact anymore. My time with them became intentional, chosen. I wasn't the kid sitting at the table hoping this time they wouldn't make me the joke. I was an adult deciding how, when, and whether I wanted to engage. My presence became a choice, not an obligation. And that changed everything. Looking back, walking away wasn't about teaching them a lesson in any dramatic sense. It was about teaching myself something. My attention, my effort, my presence. Those are privileges I offer, not debts I owe. When I stopped showing up to be treated badly, the entire dynamic had to adjust. Not overnight, not perfectly, but undeniably. Respect slowly replaced ridicule. Boundaries quietly replaced guilt. And I finally understood something no one had ever taught me growing up. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say isn't a speech at all. It's your absence. It's your silence. It's the moment you decide, I don't live in that version of the story anymore. And once you truly choose that, everything and everyone has to meet you differently. By the way, if stories like this resonate with you, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. It helps more than you know and lets me keep sharing these experiences with you.